Gosh, I need to catch my breath. Welcome to Unpack That. Real talk, real life, real healing. My name is Isabel Stokes from Kansas City, Missouri. For all my astrology friends out there, I'm a Gemini, which might make sense because I do love a good yap session, and I might be doing a little yapping a lot. So, excuse me. For work, I'm a therapist. I specialize in couples and families. Currently, I'm in the thick of it. I'm halfway through my provisional license. Then I'll be fully licensed and can continue practicing fully licensed, which I'm really excited about. Helping people has always been my thing, and creating a safe space, whether that be here on the podcast or also just with my clients. I want them to feel like if they're just having an awful week or they've just been through a lot, I just want them to have an hour worth of I can just let everything out in this room and feel safe. And even though I'm a therapist, I'm always learning with my clients and growing in the field itself. And that's the cool thing about therapy and just learning is like you can learn from anybody and everybody. And so that's why I started Unpack That, because healing isn't just a destination. It's messy, it's beautiful, it's hard, and it's an ongoing process. But I hope when this podcast is that we're doing it together. I would like to say, even though I'm a therapist, I am not your therapist personally. So every situation and every person is different. But I hope things I talk about or share will resonate with you and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing and exciting that someone actually is saying stuff I believe or have heard before. I also thought that Unpack That would be a perfect name because it's a little fun, it's a little chaotic, but it also can be really deep, which I really enjoyed. And honestly, even if one person listens and it's one of my friends, I think that will be really cool because this is something I've always thought about but never wanted to try because it was so out of my realm since I'm so go to school, get a job, that's the normal route, but podcasting and I'm not trying to be an influencer, but quote unquote is so out of the norm. That's why I'm like, let's just try it. And if one person listens, I'm like, cool. Hopefully it resonates with them. Even though I would love if this grew, that'd be really cool because then other people could interact and ask questions or leave comments and I can maybe do a segment about it, which I'm really excited about because there are some really cool segments. Actually, I'll talk about a little bit of them later. But another thing too that I would like to state is I saw this quote. This quote really kind of helped me resonate and with myself and see why not even try. The quote goes something like, you can't fail at something that you haven't even tried. So if that's something that's stuck with you or you're kind of makes you think about something, definitely go for it. Why not? If you fail, it's not the end of the world because at least you tried. To the fun segments I'm thinking about doing some about dating, pop culture, because I'm a pop girly. I'm so basic like that, but it's so fun. Healing, real life growth moments, and also all the messy things in between. Let's dive into the first topic, or should I say, let's unpack the first topic. The first topic I want to talk about is how healing isn't pretty. Let's normalize that. I love in movies or shows talk about or show how someone's driving down the sunset or walking on the beach or something just glamorous and beautiful and cinematic and an epiphany happens and they're like, oh my gosh, everything's clicking. I understand. And honestly, even though it's great for filmography and everything, that's not what healing really looks like. Now, for the few rare out there, maybe, but it's very slim. What real healing looks like is breaking down on the floor, eating Oreos, s'mores, sugary food, definitely having a breakdown of some sort, being like, what the heck did I go through and what the heck is happening? It's having hard conversations, it's being uncomfortable, and it's being honest with yourself. And it's facing parts of yourself that you never thought you'd have to. That is what healing is. And the thing is, it is a long process and the journey is hard and it could suck. And I tell my clients or just friends that in general, it will suck for a while, but you won't feel like that forever. And another thing I want to specifically say is that there's a difference between healing with your mind and healing with your body. Your mind might totally understand the situation and what you've gone through. You might believe you moved past it, but your body holds on to things differently. Sometimes the most random thing can trigger you. A smell, a song, a word even, and suddenly you're in a puddle of tears or you're overstimulated. Your anxiety is just through the roof. And you're thinking, why am I so upset? I thought I was over this. What is this thing that happened? And honestly, you are older. You have gone over it because it was 10 years ago, it was 20 years ago. But the thing is, your body might still be working through the emotional process. And that's okay. It's not silly, it's human. Everybody goes through it. And that's just being more, again, aware with yourself and being honest with yourself. And that's really hard because you start questioning your own actions. You might find yourself thinking, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I let that happen. I would never put myself in that situation. And it's true and it's painful, but you were never knew anything before that. And it's painful because you thought you knew yourself better than that. Like, I would never do that to myself, or I'd never let myself get there. But here's the thing, questioning yourself is always a big part. But remember, it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean there was something wrong with you in that period. It means you're growing. And I would love to have a whole segment about feeling like you're broken because that's such a big thing that people I see or work with or talk to, that they believe they're broken. And I always remind them, like, you're not broken. There's just this big thing that happened in your life that you're trying to work around or work with. Well, not even around, but just try to figure out what the heck was going on with me or going on in this place or situation. To piggyback on that, really, when if it comes to trauma with other people, sometimes you won't get closure from that. And that hurts, and it's so hard working through that. But you can create closure for yourself by giving yourself grace and understanding that what happened wasn't your fault and that you will be okay. And that even though you got through it physically, mentally, you can also get through it, even though it'll be very hard, but you can do it. And then there's that big part about setting boundaries, which again is not cute or easy. It's very messy. It can be complex. Again, there can be some lucky people that it's like, oh, they respect it. This is great. I'm really happy I finally just spoke up, because that's another hard part. It's just telling people like, hey, this is my boundary. And seeing how they respond shows a big part about who they are and how they respect you. Because if they're questioning the boundary you set up with them, that is an orange or a red flag. And you should really question that, because they are I don't want to say they're stunting your growth and healing, but they are making it harder for you to do that. So you really need to question, like, okay, if they're pushing on my boundaries more, then I either need to have another conversation with them, or I need to reevaluate how I want to spend time with them, which again is very different for friends, relationships, family. Like, every person is specifically different. But I do want you to think about that if you do set up boundaries, about how people respond. The biggest thing I want you to remember is to be kind to yourself. That is the number one part of like healing, because you yourself is always the hardest critic and the hardest person to please. And you have to have no judgment, not be perfect, and just be kind to yourself. Because healing isn't about doing it right. It's about honoring yourself every step of every hard and big step you go through. I also feel like just being kind to yourself is such a hard thing, because people really are their worst enemies. And even though, like, maybe you were the awful one in the relationship, but maybe it was because there was some stuff you're going through that you didn't work through. Or that person maybe brought up triggers you didn't even know you had. And again, that's really hard to be like, oh, maybe I was the problem. But also maybe there's just, in that time of your life, you weren't your best self because there was a lot deeper going on. Again, you're not broken. It's just figuring out what you have to heal with yourself. But you have to start with being kind. So I hope you liked that little first segment that we did. Another fun thing I would like to unpack is, I wouldn't say twist, but it's like a fun thing that I saw. I was like, oh, this would be like kind of like different, which is unpacking therapy myths. There's like a lot of therapy myths, but I think this one's really good. So I would love to like unpack that one first. is that therapy is only for people in crisis, which I hear a lot. Which, I mean, it is great to go to therapy if there is a big crisis. But honestly, the best time to go to therapy is when you're actually doing okay, because you're more aware and you're more open minded to be like, oh, there was some stuff that I didn't realize about myself before that now that I'm talking about it, we can discuss it or I'm open to it. Most of the time, therapy is about unpacking old wounds, patterns, or mindsets that's in your life that's still showing up in different ways in relationships and self talk. It's not just about reacting to trauma, but it's about building awareness with yourself. I see that a lot in couples too. They usually meet me at a 9 or 10 when they walk in the room, which is totally fine because I can work with that. And I have and I always will. I love all the couples I see. But I always joke if they met me at a 7 or 8, it will be a bit easier because even if I'm seeing an individual person and they're at a 7 and 8 or even a bit lower, it's easier because at a 9 or 10, your emotions and anxiety and is so overwhelmed and it's hard to just even process anything that's going on because you're just kind of in survival mode in that moment. And you can feel like in survival mode for a long time. And so if you're able to walk into a room and be at a 6 or 7, you're able to be have the walls a little bit lower, emotions a little bit lower, anxieties a bit lower, and actually be able to say what you feel and what you mean. And then with your partner or with your therapist or with yourself, and then everything's a little bit calmer. But if you do go at a 9 or 10, I do recommend doing a little bit of it sounds cliche, but doing a bit of breathing and being like, oh, I realize that I'm super anxious and can we work on that before I can even explain like everything else I'm feeling? And I would also like to say for individuals, going back to that, therapy isn't always super deep. Yes, of course it can be, and a majority of the time it should be and can be, depending on the person and the situations they want to talk about. Especially if you just need to vent, though, vent about work, relationships, family, ex friendships, whatever. It just feels nice to be heard and just having someone outside of the third party to listen. And we don't know anybody, we as in therapists, don't know anybody you're talking about unless you show us pictures. And it's nice too because you don't have to feel guilty or judged because that's another tip. I guess I could do another episode about even talking about tips you should look for in therapists because your therapist should not be judging or make you feel guilty about anything. And also, not every session is a trauma dumping session, like I said, at least not in my room. I really try to read the vibe of the room and how last session went compared to how they're feeling today or what they look like or just their body language. That's a huge thing as well. Because if we just went an hour deep conversation about really heavy stuff the week before, I'm not going to make you talk about it again for a whole nother hour unless they're up for it, they want to, or if they want to even do like 20 minutes, we can do that. But I'm never going to throw it in your face and be like, okay, let's shut door and be like, okay, let's talk about this all again. Like, I'm really not going to do that because sometimes you just need to mix it up a bit and have a little bit of light session or, like I said, even 20 minutes of talking about it and then maybe the rest being just like a little bit lighter. That's also okay too because mixing it up, at least for me, it's working, or I also just see how my client is and it works. But also it just doesn't feel as heavy because therapy is intense. And so that's why I try to do that at least. And like I said, it's just nice that your therapist is someone on the outside. It can be just refreshing that they don't know anyone you're talking about and that we're your biggest fan. Us as therapists, like we support you guys. Yes, there should be a line of tough love if you want your therapist to hold you accountable, which they should in some aspects. But also like we are team you guys. Whatever you want to talk about, work on, like anything in general. We're your guys' fans. So if you hate your friend for a day, I hate them for a day. And you're like, okay, we made up, we're friends. I'm like, I love that. I love that we're friends. But then you question, okay, why were you upset? Was it a little bit irrational? Was there a trigger? Diving a bit deeper into what really was the root of it. And then we can unpack that. So, yeah, let's officially bust the myth and say therapy is not just for crisis. Sometimes it's just for being human and just wanting someone to talk to you and have an ear. Us as therapists always want to make you feel heard and seen in the room and give you techniques to feel that outside of the room. That's the first episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. I love kind of just, like I said, I'm a Gemini, so I'll yap as long as I can. But I hope it was a good one. It was a little intro about me, a little bit about my work, and a taste of the segments that we'll be unpacking. If you've been watching or listening, thank you so much for doing that. As a cliche saying, you can follow, like, subscribe, whatever, all the things. I don't know, all the influencer things that are said. I'll be sharing there more if you'd love to connect. I think that'll be really fun. And with every episode, I want to end with a little segment. I know, so many segments. But this one will be kind of a fun one because you can also interact with it. It's called What's in Your Bag? So it can be something you've been thinking about all week or something emotional or funny or random. And for what's in my bag this week is, should I start watching or should I get into The Summer I Turned Pretty? I don't know who will be listening or watching, but it's a very popular show on Amazon. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But all I know, it's a love triangle and they play some Taylor Swift music. And I saw the trailer and I gasped because there was a twist in it and I loved it. And so that is what's in my bag. Let me know what's in yours. I also love a love triangle because I love Gilmore Girls. And so if you know Gilmore Girls, there's a lot of love triangles. But yeah, that's what's in my bag. Let me know what's in yours. And yeah, I'll see you guys for next week.